Chapter 2 Pesa, Month 4 of 3818. Prince Essewan Parastam, under the Dominion. Essewan had cried himself to sleep with his face pressed into his cousin's chest. He had tried to hold the tears back, but fear had crept up on him, cold and sudden, like the plunge into a well. The ground had shaken, it had roared, and he had clung to Sotam with all his strength. "It's all right, little one," Sotam had whispered against his ear. "Cry if you need to, no one will know." Essewan was 11, nearly 12, and the thought of that fact made the shame burn hotter. Still, he couldn't stop. He swallowed his sobs until his throat ached. For the rest of the night he held on, clinging as a puchin clung to its mother high in the canopy. Now, with dawn pushing pale light through his eyelids, Essewan kept still, listening to the muffled crackle of fire beyond the Lumden's wall and the faint cries drifting up from the city. Sotam hadn't moved. His heartbeat was steady beneath Essewan's ear, the weight of his arm warm and protective. Essewan guessed his cousin hadn't slept at all. He knew Sotam wanted to be down in the city, helping the people. But his father, the king, had ordered him to stay. The prince's safety, that came first, and Sotam had obeyed. Essewan knew why he himself didn't want to go down there. Though he hated admitting it, he wouldn't know what to do. He'd only get in the way. 4 years until he would be called a young man, and already he was failing to act like one. He shifted, pretending to be groggy, and lifted his head. "What should we do?" His voice was hoarse. Sotam gave a short snort and the barest smirk. One corner of his mouth downturned. He knew. The bailey of the Lumden still smelled of canvas and smoke. 3 tents stood in a neat row. One for the king and queen, one for the prince and Sotam, and a large one for the servants. Essewan had barely noticed them being pitched in the dark. Sotam and the other had worked through the night, while he sat by the fire with his knees drawn up, trying not to cry. At dawn, the courtyard was set with banquet tables. Black smoke climbed past the wooden walls, staining the cloudless sky. Several men, faces streaked with soot, their clothes stiff with dried mud, sat slumped at the benches, tearing steam breath with their hands. They ate in silence, exhaustion hanging over them like ash. Essewan glanced back towards the tent. Sotam was fastening his tunic, a sleeveless white garment with a single shoulder flap that buttoned halfway down and fell to mid-thigh. A belt cinched it with a white leg trouser draped loosely over his boots. He stepped outside, greyed-out sword in hand, and ruffled Essewan's hair for the second time. "Come, let's eat." Essewan followed him to the table. The steward soon joined them, reporting that the Lumden showed no sign of structural compromise. Still, the king forbade anyone to return inside. When Sotam asked after the towns, the steward explained that the king and nearly every able-bodied man was fighting the flames, still gutted houses after houses. They had been fortunate, he added, that the fire started uphill, and that no wind had fanned it. Even so, nearly 1,000 homes were already gone. When the steward left, the courtyard grew quiet. Essewan stared at his half-eaten steamed bread, dipping cream untouched. "You can go help," he muttered, eyes fixed on the crust in his hands. "If you want." He felt Sotam's pale, crystal eye on him. When he dared to look up, he blurted, "I can go with you. You can teach me how I can be of use." Sotam brushed a crumb from his chin and smiled softly. "You will serve your king and Motngap by staying whole and alive." Essewan lifted his chin. "I will be king of nothing if the entire city burns down." The words escaped before he could stop them. Only afterwards did he realize how sharp they sounded. Sotam's amused glance toward he had noticed as well. A memory flickered, fresh as last night, that Essewan did not want to be king at all. But Sotam's tone broke no argument. The fires will be put out. Do not worry. Finish your food, then you'll take your reading lessons. Afterward, I will train you with the sword until your master is free again. By the time they had washed their faces and scrubbed their teeth, the Sohilai was waiting in the tent. Together they crossed the courtyard. From the postern gate came the sound of raised voices. Essewan froze at the familiarity of it. Through the gaps of the gate, he saw his father, shouting at the guards, "I want to see my son." One of the guards swore he would break the man's leg if he did not turn back. "What is going on here?" Sotam called down from the top of the gatehouse. "I want to see my son," the man replied. "Your son is well, scrub uncle. He will see you on the next crossing of the sky. Goodbye." But the man pressed on. "Tell him my house has burned down. His brother and grandmother will be sleeping in the streets tonight." Essewan's chest tightened. He wanted to answer. He wanted to let him in. But his father had been banned from the Lumdin. After his mother's death, it would have been inappropriate for him to live beneath the roof of her kin. "The king will hear your petition in time," Sotam replied, voice clipped. "It is his duty, and mine is to protect the prince. Goodbye, scrub uncle." He slid down the ladder and gestured for Essewan to follow. As they walked, Essewan's thought tangled. Sotam and his twin should have been raised by their mother's parents when she died, but the old couple had refused. They blamed the king for her murder and for marrying again scarcely a month later. In their grief and fury, they had turned their backs on their grandsons, bringing shame upon themselves. The king had been left with no choice but to take the twins into his household, making them his wards and servants. Essewan hated the lessons most of all. The letters were easy enough. He could trace them with his fingers, copy them with a reed pen, but when he tried to speak the words aloud in the foreign tongue, they tangled in his mouth. He felt foolish, like a child of 3, not a prince soon to be 12. Each failure burned in his throat until he wished the ground would swallow him. At least, swordplay made sense. Blades had weight, stances had rules, and his body remembered them without shame. When the Sohilai dismissed him, Essewan ran down to the sandpit to put on his gear. As Sotam got into his armor, Essewan climbed the walls of the bailey, and the smoke of the burning city below was still thick in the air. Come down," his cousin called. Essewan turned on his heels, ready to answer Sotam, when the air itself split open. A roar rolled from the west, deep and booming, like a river loosed from its banks. Essewan turned back to look, and Sotam was on him, in a flash standing by his side in a protective stance. A thunderous wall of cloud tore apart as it slowed. Through it emerged a woman with vast crimson wings, spread wide but never beating. Light glimmered from the feathers as though each carried a vein of fire. Essewan's breath caught. He could not move. The woman halted and hovered over the city, wings tilted upwards, their tips pointing to the sky. Her blood-red feather wings flared, pulsing in a soft glow like a heartbeat. Essewan thought of the portrait hanging in the great hall, and he knew her at once. The heir Daman, Alba L the younger. A shiver ran through him. Someone had told him that the color of their wings matches their character, and the color was fearful to him. Still, he was in awe, unable to look away. Beside him, Sotam dropped to his knees. Essewan followed without thinking. When he lowered his eyes, he saw a new wonder, a tide of white mist boiling up from the hill below. Climbing the hill, it rushed past the people in the streets, thick as smoke, yet cool, harmless, before surging straight into the flames. The fire fought back, crackling and hissing, but the mist smothered it, rolling forward in whirling pockets like snakes in a pit. In moments the blaze was gone. A gust of wind brushed Essewan's face. He looked up. The Daman was already departing. Wings aglow, her thunderous noise echoing once before she vanished into the horizon. Below, the mist dissolved. The riverbed lay bare for an instant, smooth stone gleaming in the sunlight before water gushed back, filling its course as if nothing had happened. Essewan glanced at Sotam. He had no words. Sotam rose, dusting off his knees. Come, child, I won't have father asking why you have neglected your lessons today. The thick mist had drowned the fire pit and snuffed out every candle. Even the logs stacked for the hearth were left sodden. In the great hall, Essewan overheard one of the king's men complain that they were lucky the sun had been hot enough to dry the wood again. His companion only shook his head and drank his watered spirit in silence. At least the king had permitted the Lumden to be reoccupied by its residents and servants. Yet Essewan, like many of them, hesitated passing through the threshold of the black wooden house. Sotam noticed. When no one was looking, he held out his hand and Essewan took it as they stepped back inside. Earlier, Sotam had repeated grim stories told by an Orleans daughter. Men and women crushed beneath beams, their skulls split like melons. The words haunted Essewan. He thought of his own friends, and shame burned him for having forgotten them until now. Panic rose in him. He begged to search, tried to run, but Sotam was too quick, too strong. His cousin stopped men coming in and out of the bailey to ask, yet none could say what had happened of the friends Essewan sought. That night, Essewan lay awake in bed. He had bathed, washing away smoke and ash, while Sotam scrubbed his back and hair. Still, the stench lingered. The lone lantern on the wall spilled a weak glow across the floor, making the oil stain on the wooden floor glimmer. At the door, Sotam spoke in hushed tones with a man Essewan could not recognize. The whisper blurred. Essewan felt tears prick his eyes. He forced them back, ashamed. Other boys would have gone out to move stones, carry water, pass out bread. He had done nothing. Are you all right, Es? Sotam was kneeling beside the bed, his face close in the lantern's glow. I'm sorry, Essewan whispered, wiping his tears. It's all right. Sotam said softly. With me you can always cry it out. Essewan lowered his head in shame, but Sotam added, I've had words about your friends. Essewan's eyes lit. Are they safe? They are. None of them were hurt. Relief surged through him. He threw himself into his cousin's arm and clung to him, sobbing with joy. That night, Essewan and Sotam talked the way they used to, when Sotam's twin was still here, and the three of them slept side by side, Essewan in the middle. Back then, their whisper had been about ridiculous things, whether the cricket outside was shouting because a lady cricket had spurned them, or frightening things like the monster in the outhouse hole who put children down into the dark. But that night, Essewan asked different questions a man should ask. Why does the king never let me go anywhere alone? I can wield a sword, he said, half defiant. Sotam sighed and rested his head on one hand, staring at the ceiling. Because you're the only heir he has, the only one he can shape. He trusts you'll keep modding up first. Our uncle won't. Then he rolled onto his side, his eyes glinting with mischief. You think you're ready to fight a man with a sword? Let's see if you can fight off the tickled fingers. Before Essewan could escape, Sotam lunged and jabbed with his long bony finger until they were both breathless with laughter. The next morning, nothing had gone back to normal. Servants and guards bowed quickly and without warmth. They spoke little, their eyes sliding past him as if he were not there. Walking the palace halls, Essewan felt less like a prince than a ghost haunting a broken house. There was nowhere he belonged. The kitchen had once welcomed him, but the king had scolded him for chopping onions with the maids. The training yard tempted him, but another outburst about arrows in foolish hands still rang in his ears. His shadow had been summoned by the king. leaving him confined to private spaces until lesson began. Restless, Essewan slipped into the small water lily courtyard, the queen's favorite place. Sotam would have disapproved, but she was away in Descenwin with someone, and the quiet here felt like freedom. He dangled his feet over the deck, laughing softly as the fish nibbled at his toes. He missed his friends. The king would not let them stay in London, though Essewan had begged. The many Orleans children were no comfort. The boys were cruel, the girls worse, talking only of dresses and other boys. Perhaps he could visit the little book house of the Chilier scholar, if it had survived the fire. Essewan, Sotam's voice cut like cold steel. Essewan turned. His cousin stood in the doorway, not stepping into the courtyard. Sorry, Essewan whispered, scrambling up. I'm coming. The walk back to his chamber was silent. Essewan struggled to keep pace with Sotam's long stride. Please, Sotam, he panted. I'm sorry. It was the only quiet place I could find. Forgive me. You are late for your lessons, Sotam said, his gaze fixed ahead. He did not slow. He did not look at him. Essewan had finally managed to read aloud in the foreign tongue. Perhaps it was because he had truly paid attention for once, or because he could not bear to disappoint yet another adult. Whatever the reason, the words had come. He left the lecture room, grinning ear to ear, until he remembered his cousin. Out in the bailey, Sotam was already dressed in layered cloth and hardened leather, training armor snug against his shoulders. He was speaking with Mon, the stable hand, grinning in that easy way of his. The grin reminded Essewan of Tessin. He had not seen his Kuran in 2 days, not since the king had set the winged steed to work clearing the main streets. The boy stepped into the training pit, its coarse white sand crunching underfoot, and studied his cousin's face. Sotam turned, smiled, still fixed, and said, There you are. How was your lesson? Essewan found the courage to smile back. Very well. I read through 2 pages of the storybook. The Sohilai explained it to me. I enjoyed the story. Good. Sotam helped him into his armor, ruffled his hair, and promptly smacked him on the rear with the flat of a wooden blade, marking the start of their sparring. Essewan was still clumsy, shield up, sword raised, but too slow to catch every strike. His master, and now his cousin in arms, had told him time and again, fight until your body no longer asks how. Let instinct guard the front, so your mind can shape the final blow. Yet instinct was slow in coming. Sotam's smirk made it clear enough. When his cousin's foot hooked his leg, Essewan went tumbling, only for Sotam to seize him by the collar before his head struck the sand. Maybe you should be wearing a padded helmet, Sotam teased. A horn blast silenced the pit. Not just any horn, Essewan knew that sound. Sotam remembered it too. The last time it had blown, the Dolian had come to visit nearly 2 years ago. Essewan slipped free of his cousin's grasp and ran to the battlement overlooking the great hall's entrance. Down the winding cleared street, 7 Kurans bounded like great cats across rooftops. Their wings were folded tight, rising like banners behind them. Black, violet blue, brown. Essewan counted them, all 7. One bore the banner of Chilier. Sotam joined him at the wall and nudged his shoulder. Don't make it a habit of running from me. You don't know what you'll run into. Mon appeared too, shovel in hand, streaked with horse dung. Soon the whole of Lumdin seemed to gather. The king waited atop the great hall's stone steps, 4 councilmen at his right and Essewan's teacher at his left. At the vanguard rode a woman. Her hair was tied back, golden circlet catching the light. She wore a vivid red doublet, plain but striking, tucked into the high-waisted green trousers that clung to her legs, with black boots to her knees. Essewan did not know her face. The people pressed close along the cobbled slope of Lumden Hill, watching. The 6 riders behind her were clad in gleaming dark blue armor, guards by their bearing, though one seemed a full foot shorter than the rest. One guard dismounted, his brown couronne stamping as the man removed his dark glass visored helm with its single plume. He dropped to one knee before the king. Sotam's whisper carried to Essewan's ear. What is he doing here? The king descended the steps, studied the man, then broke into a smile and embraced him. Who is he, Sotam? Essewan asked, eyes wide. Our uncle, Sotam said. The king's famed brother, who left before Essewan was even born. The king had summoned Essewan. The boy hurriedly wiped the sweat and sand from his face and dusted his tunic. Sotam walked behind, did not bother with such things. Their master, Udel, bald, though not truly old, found Essewan in the fighting pit. He reminded the boy of his teachings, smiling more than Essewan had ever seen him. Udel claimed it was the closest he had ever stood to royalty, conveniently forgetting that Essewan himself was a prince. And the woman? She was Arrhenice, a daughter of a princess. Not the heir Daman, not the princess, the spare Daman they called her. She had no wings, nothing to compare to the true heir, and yet Essewan thought her beautiful. They said all Shelians were beautiful, but it was hard to believe when Master Udel, bald and Essewan could not say he was handsome, was one of them. Essewan stepped into the great hall. Its high roof rose like a tent above him, and a square hole cut through the beams let smoke drift from the central hearth. The walls, paneled with blackened planks, made the hall feel close and warm in the winter, yet cool in the summer. Today the hearth pit was grey with ash, and he thought he saw the swirled prints of a cat that had rolled through it. The chamber was crowded. Orlans filled the benches, their sons and daughters gathered with them, most older than Essewan. Servants moved along them with jugs, pouring mugs of floured honey nut milk. Shelians were said to hate strong drink, though Master Udel swore that was nonsense. Then again, Udel himself never touched ale. From where he stood, Essewan counted 6 gatherings. The Orlans sat proud with their kin. Their children whispered and giggled together. The king's council huddled with the scribes and attendants. Across the hall stood the warrior clan leaders, newly arrived this morning to petition the king. The captains of the guard held rank behind their liege, stiff back in their uniform. At the king's side, Master Udel translated each word into the flowing tongue of the Arrhenice. With her companions, gleaming men in dark blue armor, stood in a silent line behind her, helm tucked beneath their arms. Essewan stared at them longer than he meant to. Perhaps the saying was true. The Shelians were all beautiful. Their skin glowed smooth, their eyes glimmered green, purple, red, black, one even shone like amber, and one man's hair was as pale as pink blossom. They looked like the sort of boys the girls whispered about. Indeed, Essewan heard the giggles from one corner of the hall, while the older boys growled at being compared. By contrast, the king's brother, Essewan's uncle, seemed terribly plain, and the shortest of the Arrhenice men looked too young to be a warrior at all. Your Holy Highness, meet my heir, the king said. He is my late sister's only child, Essewan. Her smile struck through him like an arrow. His stomach fluttered. A shiver crawled from his toes to his scalp. Her eyes were bright embers streaked with gold, flickering as though alive, pressing against the back of her pupil. Her lips gleamed with pain, pink as polished shell. Udel murmured her words for the king's sake, but Essewan hardly heard. Her voice cut like a blade, resonant, sharp, commanding. Essewan caught a few words himself, something like, I see a bit of Craumon. Your Holy Highness, May peace walk beside you, Lady of the Sacred Line, and may the Holy Mother's light never dim. Exactly how Master Udal had taught him. Essewan bowed his head as he had been taught. To his surprise, she inclined her own in answer. He had not seen her grant that courtesy to any save the king. I like his throat, she told Udal. Essewan blinked until Udal explained gently that the Rhaenys admired his accent. Her smile faded, her gaze sharpened, full of concern, as she turned to the king. Udal's voice carried the meaning. She spoke of the sick, the wounded. The boy's eyes widened. He learned that the Rhaenys was a healer. The king turned on his heel and together they departed the hall, walking towards the Durbar Lumden, while her armored men followed in solemn silence. The great hall had emptied with the king and his guests, leaving only echoes. Essewan stayed still, watching the shadows stretch across the floor. The moment pressed into his bones, the way cold sometimes did, and he thought. He liked the Rhaenys, just as he had liked the Dolian of Chilier, and Master Udal too. His lessons were dull, but his laughter and his stories had a way of curling around you like blankets. He spun towards Sotam and saw their uncle standing at the foot of the throne. A soft smile rested on the man's face, his gaze fixed on Sotam. Essewan didn't understand, but the air around them felt strange, heavy, like a storm about to break. So are you not even going to look at me? The uncle's voice was soft, Sotam's eyes still pinned to the throne. Essewan felt the weight of their uncle's gaze turn to him. Essewan, the name came low and steady. The boy tilted his head up, curious, not afraid. The man was tall, all sharp-lined, cheekbone like the king's, copper skin, eyes the color of watered earth. He looked like the king, yet younger, less hollowed. Your mother named you after a dear friend of hers, and mine. Essewan's stomach twisted. He had never known her, and he hated when people spoke of her. He had Sotam, that was enough. He slipped his fingers into his cousin's hand, gripping tight until Sotam's warmth pressed back. I would never abandon him, Sotam said, voice like iron. Essewan looked at him, proud and certain, until Sotam's eyes cut cold towards their uncle. I am so sorry, Sotam. Their uncle whispered, I'm sorry I left you and your brother. Essewan's throat clenched. His cousin's eyes, wet with tears, he tried to swallow. The boy's own glare sharpened and landed square on their uncle, daring him to make it worse. The man saw. He stepped forward anyway, slow, awkward, and carefully hung his helm on the hook of his armor. Essewan bristled, ready to shout a warning, but Sotam was already trembling. His cousin's wall cracked, and before Essewan could move, their uncle had wrapped him in his arms. Sotam's sob broke free at last. How is he? Sotam forced out, words muffled against the uncle's blue cloak. He will be home soon, Sotam. He is all well. He will be home soon. Essewan's chest loosened. Someone. They mean someone. He wanted to cry too, but he bit it back. Teeth set hard. Then an arm reached and dragged him into the circle, pressing him into the warmth and cold armor of both men, and the boy let himself be held. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And if you would comment, that will help out a lot with the algorithm.